Oh, come on, Araki. Don't do this to us again. You can't keep teasing us. These shady sailors that are looking over Dragona and Jodio, you know exactly what you're doing right here. The last time that we were teased about potentially getting a Part 8 character to come back for a cameo, we got Rohan. And to be honest, I can't be mad at that. That was a pretty good cameo. But right now, we're at the part of the story where we should be getting some sort of mention about the previous part. I mean, in Part 8, this is when we finally got to that shakedown road situation where we talked about Johnny and found out a little bit more about his fate. Right now, if we don't get Josuke in that same dusty-ass outfit he's been wearing for the last 10 years, then I don't know, maybe we're gonna get the worst kind of cameo at this point. We might even be getting He Who Shall Not Be Named, the worst antagonist in all of JoJo history. But then again, depending on where we left off this last chapter, there might be a situation where Josuke just comes in to save the day. Or that's just wishful thinking. Regardless, welcome to year 2 of the JOJOLands. It really doesn't feel like it's already been 2 years into Part 9. This year, we got a new member to the gang in the form of Charming Man with his stand, Big Mouth Strikes Again, which can basically turn him into anything. His stand is made of sand, which makes me really frequently call him Sandman, even though I know that is absolutely not his name. But it's just really easy to fall into that habit. And we got to learn more about who seems to be our current main antagonist, Aka Howler, and his organization Howler Inc. Because Araki's been going full ham into that anti-corporation, anti-government kind of ideas. I mean, I'm gonna be mentioning it later down in this video, but look, our main villain group is consisting of a firefighter, a police officer, and an attorney, all hired by an eccentric billionaire. I mean, at the very least, I think that means something. But let's get started with this. I'm Randy, and let's start talking about it. One of the first things that happened this year was that Charming Man joined our group over here. And to be honest, his motives fit perfectly. Because Charming Man's just some guy that's trying to find his brother after going into some private property, and his brother ended up falling into some holes in the ground. Which sound a little familiar there? It makes sense as to why Paco recruited him and why Jodio and Dragona kind of took him in pretty quick too. For all the stuff that we keep hearing about Jodio being a psychopath that's kind of unfeeling and uncaring, he's really the kind of guy that's really gonna lay it all on the line for his family. And we see that because one of the most impactful chapters that we got earlier this year were Jodio and Dragona's flashback chapter, when we saw them in their childhood. More importantly, we saw them going to school as Dragona would be bullied relentlessly. I would say if you're squeamish or don't like things where kids are bullied to this extent, this chapter might have made you feel a little uncomfortable. This chapter was a little bit hard on that. But we saw Jodio get so riled up by this that he would completely decimate Dragona's bully and go so far as to, set a whole school bus on fire, showing us that this kid is pretty badass. And at the end of this chapter, we also see their introduction to Meryl May and how they actually became a part of this group that she's got going on. I think it was extremely important to flesh out Jodio as a character to show just how far he's willing to actually go. And right after this, we're led to one of the first of 2 of the storylines that we've been mainly following this year. This first of 2 being a retread of like that lovers arc from Stardust Crusaders. Because in the course of our group going out to try and acquire Howler's property by using that lava rock that they've been using, they encounter a stand that infiltrates Usagi and spreads among the group. And again, just like in the lovers arc, it's something where they have to do their absolute best to try and get that stand out of their body. Whether it be by sending in other stands like smooth operators, or by trying to get Jodio to perfectly line up his November Rain to take out the stand. This entire sequence that we got over here really showed us that the battles aren't going to be so cut and dry as they are in maybe other parts of JoJo, because this is something that can't be solved just that easily. I mean, for countless chapters, it looks like Usagi's on death's door. I have absolutely no clue how he survived that at the end of the day. But it led us to the introduction of Lulu and Bobby Jean, assassins that were hired by Howler to take out the people that have been basically just bothering him. The group ends up going to a hospital, but this disease also starts to infect other people too. Here we get another glimpse of that compassion that our characters actually have, showing us that they're a bit more than that greedy personality that they're trying to tell us that they are, after they find out that the politician's daughter got hit too. But basically, this entire battle here at the hospital ends with a confrontation with Jodio and Bobby Jean, where we actually get a bit more of a glimpse on how November Rain works as a stand. And when we're talking about close quarter battles, you might actually be right to say that November Rain might actually be a little bit broken. I mean, just look at this. Jodio apparently just got shot to hell, and what happens? It lures Bobby Jean closer into the stand's range, and with one hit, Jodio wins, making it much more of like a simple fight where Jodio's gonna go in a back and forth with a character, and much more of something where November Rain has a certain set of win conditions that once they're met, actually make the entire thing his game. He wins. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be other really creative ways on how to use this stand, like how we saw that Jodio used November Rain to kill a stand inside of someone's body. But even if it's just a standard fight with any character, he probably has the upper hand. After the sequence over here, Lulu gets taken in by our group and they go over to Meryl May to try and get some more information about Howler and everything that's been going on. And on Howler's perspective, we get a bit of a glimpse about what's been going on over there because he hired these people to sort out issues for him. And now we can talk about Howler a little bit. He's this rich, playboy, eccentric guy that's just going along, not with a care in the world, until he notices that his finances are being impacted. But there's this way about Howler in general that really doesn't scream main villain to me. Like with this interaction with our new villainous crew over here, they really just go up to him and say, hey, you're the big boss. You can't get scared. But we've been seeing that he's probably the most nervous, the most stressed out of everyone over here. Normally, a villain in JoJo is made to be cold, really uncaring, unfeeling. They don't even know the concept of fear, essentially, until they're on their very last legs. But here, we've got a character that kind of doesn't feel really too sure about the entire situation. Aka Howler might just be the placeholder to be the villain for like this half until he gets replaced by another villain in the second half. Or, and hear me out for a second here, Araki might be doing something that he hasn't done with a villain before in JoJo. He might let a villain actually grow. Instead of being a stagnant character that's just one way and he doesn't really get unfazed or doesn't really change, maybe his losses start to change him a little bit until he becomes a lot more battle hardened and someone that can actually be vicious. Seeing the progression of a villain or the evolution of a villain would be something that I would love to see in this part of JoJo. Have both sides grow as they watch what the other one's doing. But that's not to say that Aka Howler hasn't done like despicable things. I mean, he already had the banker Yokohama assassinated by Bobby Jean. So he's willing to do really dirty stuff, but I wonder if he himself is up to the task. We know that his family members, like his grandpa over here, is willing to do really dark stuff. We just haven't seen it so far with Howler himself. And over here, when we're looking at the new villains, what do we have over here? The firefighter looks like he's the human version of King Crimson. His eyes are bulging out of his skull. He looks absolutely terrifying. And the attorney's name is Key West, which I'm gonna take as the closest thing to a Stone Ocean reference as I think we're actually gonna be getting. But with all these things that have gone on, these two storylines that we've seen, our gangs realized that taking in that diamond wouldn't be nearly enough. They can take all of Howler's assets and just completely dominate everything. So that's what their current plan is. They get Charming Man to imitate that banker Yokohama, and Jodio and Dragona are sent in as backup as they go up to confront Howler himself. Not before we find out that our group's been compromised because Howler's agents have actually found some dirt on them. More importantly, they found dirt on Paco himself because, well, he's got a bit of a past with the military and such. And the last chapter that we end on, we get our group being called on their bluff as they're disguised as Yokohama's entourage, and Howler is pointing a gun directly at our group. Now, here's the thing. This is something that adds on to my thought process on why I think Howler's not the big bad of the part yet. He's using a gun or is threatening the use of a gun in this situation when we damn well know that he's got a stand. Well, I don't know. To me, that kind of seems like he isn't the kind of person that is willingly able to rely on his stand. Maybe it doesn't have that kind of power. Maybe it isn't used in that way. Who knows? But it really shows to me that he's not the kind of guy that's willing to just use his stand willy-nilly like everyone else is in the series. And over here, since we got a whole group of stand users facing one another, I wouldn't be surprised if that cameo does surprisingly just come in and somehow help save our gang over here. It's been quite the year for the JoJoLands, but it's finally been giving us a more consistent groundwork to really base theories and ideas off of, even though it's been setting up a lot more questions than we really have answers to. I still think the biggest mystery of it all is what that land actually holds, because as Charming Man says, it's a land that every time he tries to get into or tries to know more about, he is obstructed in some sort of way. There is some sort of force that doesn't let him get to it. kind of like the wonder of you. And since Steel Ball Run, JoJoLand, and now JoJoLands are all connected, I wouldn't be surprised if there's gonna be a similar stand to that variety that's going to be stopping people from being able to do something. I mean, one of my theories is that the lava rock that everyone's been trying to get their hands on is some sort of stand. It's a volcanic lava rock. We've seen inanimate objects or inanimate places have stands of their own. I mean, you guys remember Shakedown Road? That's an entire road that had a stand in and of itself. Couldn't it be a possibility that this lava rock belongs to a much larger stand as a whole? As well as, of course, being connected to things like rock humans? There's still so many different things that it could actually be. Maybe overall, it's not actually a lava rock and it's a meteor that hit the ground. Kind of like another kind of meteor that hit the ground and caused us to have all of these stand arrows? I don't know, it's complicated. We got a little bit more of a glimpse about that lava rock in Howler's family because it's been in the family treasure box for decades. Acquired sometime after Howler's family arrived from Italy. And since he's Italian, I guess that kind of explains that beard he's got going on because that is very much gyro related. Now that would be quite a twist if this is a Zappelli family branch. I'm not gonna say that I know where the story is going or what's gonna be happening in the next few chapters, but I've got things that I hope the story is gonna do. I wanted to break down a little bit more about Paco and Usagi as characters. I want to know more about them in terms of maybe what their backstory really is like. Maybe we get to see what caused Paco to drop out of everything that he was doing in school and in the military and just kind of start living his life of crime. And I want to see why everyone refers to Usagi, at least in the beginning, as an addict. I want to see why he was like that, what caused him to live in this way. Was he really an addict overall, or was he doing this for someone else? There's a lot of things that we still don't know about all of these characters. I mean, the way that I can describe our characters right now is that Jodio is still a kid. He likes to talk about things that he likes, so whether it be a mangaka or music that he's listening to, otherwise he's a pretty quiet guy. Dragona and Usagi seem to be Araki's punching bags because every other chapter, one or the other or both seem to be on the cusp of almost dying. And by the way, Usagi seems to be in love with Dragona, but Dragona just doesn't care about him in the slightest in that way. And then there's Paco, which actually seems to be kind of like the rock of the group, the guy that is able to keep things together. He gives a lot of that Jotaro vibes, like the actual strong guy that's gonna take someone down with just his hands. Someone that I'm completely surprised about right now is Meryl May, because she's someone that I didn't really expect to still be on the side of our characters. I thought she would have been someone that would be quick to instantly betray our team over here. Someone that would probably fit the mold of like a Pulpo or one of those capos from part 5 that were just completely good for nothing, really. But she's actually been holding out, alerting our crew, and she's taking that torture that villain that's using that second-hand version of Killer Queen's using on her. I didn't expect that at all, but it actually seems like she cares about these kids that she's sending on these suicide missions. She might not be a morally right principal, but she's got some sort of values to her. The MacGuffins and things that we thought were gonna be important, like the diamond, turned out to be things that didn't really have as much weight in the story as we thought it would. I mean, who really could have thought that the story was gonna go down the route of taking down a corporation and take all of their assets from what they were doing with the government? Not me, I can tell you that. And I think with this, that wraps up my thoughts on JoJoLands right now. What do you guys think about the part so far? Do you think Howler is gonna be the main antagonist, the main big bad of the entire series? Or do you think it's gonna go the way of part 8, where we get the introduction of a big bad after the end of everything? Maybe another relative of Howler, or maybe just the government as a whole, who knows? But we'll see in due time. As always, I was Randy, and I'll be seeing y'all next time. Peace.